William, hopefully your favorite videographer from Two Hats Publishing. I welcome you to another Two Hats special of community events. Let's look in and see what's really happening.
My name is Walt Humann, and I am a volunteer picked by the mayor of Dallas to try to help form the Fair Park, Texas Foundation.
And so what happened today, disregard the whole grilling, but what happened today? What came out of this meeting?
This is a historical event. The park board approved, I think the vote was 10-4, amazing, that in favor of the plan that we prepared to, in effect, privatize, to take the Fair Park into a public-private partnership, and for the very first time in probably 5 or 6 decades, fund it adequately so that we might turn the Queen Mary around.
It was, I mean, it was a hostile meeting there for a while, and you understand why they were fighting. But at the end of the day, this place has been in disrepair for how long?
I would say 80 years. What happened in 1936, they built these beautiful historical buildings. And what they didn't do is set up an escrow fund or a maintenance fund. And so they rested on their laurels. And what I said to the council, and I wanted to say today, is unless we get our act together, we don't have a snowball's chance in Hades of getting the Bi-centennial from the state of Texas. That's only 20 years. So let's really get to work. Otherwise, Austin, Houston, or San Antonio is going to be the site of the Bi-centennial. The Fair Park is wonderful. There's so many people. There's memories. In my own particular case, my family, my wife and I, children. When I was involved with the science place, a lot of memories, a lot of potential. But it's nothing like it could be. And so when I was in New York about 4 weeks ago, I took our kids and we saw the largest park in the United States, urban park, and we saw the oldest park, the Boston Commons. And that gave a sense of wonderful adrenaline that we can have that and more here in Dallas, Texas with Fair Park.
What is the ultimate goal of this agreement? You know, you still have 2 more city council meetings. You have to go to the briefing and then to the full council.
Right.
What is the goal?
The goal is to have the council vote 15-0 in favor of creating a public-private partnership called the Fair Park, Texas Foundation and fund it adequately.
And just to clarify, it's not like you guys want to take over Fair Park and say, okay, let's divvy it up, this foundation, let's sell this property, let's sell that property. What are you trying to do?
What we're trying to do is 3 main things. Green the park. That is more leisure place for you and your family to come have picnics and a place for quiet enjoyment. Second, to strengthen the existing institutions that are there. The Music Hall, the Texas Discovery Gardens, the Hall of State, and those other institutions. Wonderful, but they need help and they've never been marketed under the umbrella of Fair Park. Third, create new projects. How do you green the park? What does it take? And I've suggested a family park, totally accessible in the entire year, but get the community and get the professional community involved in what's called a design charrette. And really let's have something that your folks from coming in from out of town would say, I want to go by Fair Park and see that family park because it is so unique. The last thing is to preserve those historic treasures that we have in Fair Park.
Do you have enough money for all this?
No, that's the problem. And unfortunately, the first bond program that we've suggested, $75 million, the numbers have come out on just the very first priority that we need to devote money to, and that is what I call priority 1, safety, security, ADA, or some of the treasures are at risk of being destroyed. If the ceiling falls in on some of those frescoes and so forth, they're gone forever. And so that is about $30 million. Well, In the bond program in this contract, it only calls for 25. And all of the tranches that the city would provide in the first 2017 bond is 75 million. Well, when you add the first priority category of 30 and the second priority category of 60, it comes to $90 million. So we've got a shortfall already of $15 million. And that's where this operating funding comes along. If your HVAC, your home air conditioner, poops out on you, well, luckily you can call a firm up and get them out there and repair it. In this particular case, I saw these fellows scramble for 2 weeks trying to scare up $100,000 so they could replace an air conditioner so that it wouldn't shut down the aquarium. It's that
So
hand-to-mouth existence.
You said that there's other people out there that are willing to donate money, time, effort to really get this going.
Right. Yes, and I'm hopeful that we can get in-kind contributions of people's time and material, but it obviously, if the city will come through in bond program and in operating funding, I think we have a very good chance of tapping into the private sector. Many of those organizations, I asked Linda Evans, who did a magnificent job in chairing the mayor's task force. She convened a list of about 20 foundations, charitable foundations. And I thought the reception was good. But there was one point. The city's got to come through. And you show us first, show me the money, put some skin in the game, and then you can come talk to us.
What's the biggest fear here? If it doesn't pass, what happens to Fair Park 10 years from now?
I would say that number one, if you maintain the status quo, the buildings continue to deteriorate. You have the further loss of resident institutions. They move out or they don't make it because they don't have that marketing umbrella and some of the other improvements. You have an inroads on organizations that really siphon off some of the activity to other parks. We're not standing alone. There's competition out there. And so we've lost a major treasure. Once a historical treasure is destroyed or not maintained, Dallas gets a very bad reputation. And here's the term that I heard used, and that is, it was condemned by neglect. Condemned by neglect. And we don't want that to happen. So I gave to the council one of my favorite poets' poem, The Road Not Taken. We have two paths diverged in the woods, and I took the one less traveled by, and that made all the difference. Let's pick the path that's marked new, revitalized Fair Park, and not maintain the status quo.
Let me ask you real quick, the pitch that you make to the council, to the board, obviously they're going to ask you questions about the money, they're going to ask you questions about how this arrangement is going to work. But that pitch would be very different from what you would pitch, I think, to the Dallas residents. What would your pitch to Dallas residents be who, you know, they really, like 75 million is more than I can conceive of, right, in my bank account.
First,
why should Dallas residents care?
This is a place for the family, and there's something for everyone. Place for picnics, green space, quiet enjoyment, a lagoon. They are wonderful venues where you can enjoy entertainment. There will hopefully be new features. I grew up playing basketball, partly in the automobile building in Fair Park. And now, if we could get a coliseum where there's indoor basketball and volleyball and baseball, just like my grandchildren have out there on LBJ and the North Dallas Tollway, that thing is busy all week long, in the evening, during the day, and so forth. So that's the kind of activity, and when you spawn that, then it has a ripple effect. I'm hopeful that we have MLK and East Grand be brand new corridors so that you are not bottlenecked all the way up at Knox Avenue on Central Expressway when you're coming to State Fair. You have different ways to get in. And when you do that and you bring those people in where there are retail stores on both sides, that will help that community.
So what will it look like versus what it looks like today, if
Okay.
your vision
Good question.
comes to
When you-
fruition?
Let's take a drive off the tollway or the I-30 or I-45, and let's come in at where the music hall is. And now we're on Cullen Boulevard. The ideal is for us to look to the left, and that is green space. And then finally, when you get to Grand Avenue and go to MLK, that's the children's, that's the family park. And you've got a knockout water feature that people come from all over to see it. But it's got also other activities, like a splash park, and like maybe a globe that kids can walk in and then see from the inside the various countries of the world, like the map area in Boston. It would have obviously the dog park and trails and so forth. It needs more water features in Fair Park. On the west side, it is a sea of asphalt and concrete parking lots. And if you were living across the street, not only is it a site pollution, but during the summertime, that absorbs heat and it makes it actually the area hotter than it would normally be if that were grass. So we've got to have that delicate balance between how we can free up parking spaces or create new ones underground or above the surface so we don't hurt business. But at the same time, this is a new world. I don't know if you probably can Uber or Lyft. Hopefully you rode dark, and we get more people to come to Fair Park like that rather than drive. So that frees up some of those parking spaces. But it's got to have a lot of study, and I'm hoping we can energize a lot of people who are professional and are smarter than I am to give us creative solutions.
All right.
Will you come?
I don't know.
If we build it?
You know, the only time I ever go to Fair Park, to be quite honest, unless it's work related, is for the fair. The state fair.
Aha! Well, I tell you,
Yeah.
hopefully, if we can take the science place, which it just pains me every time you see that, because it's all abandoned now.
The what,
The science place, this was the old facility, the IMAX Theater. It's right there across from this area that we're talking about, the family park. Convert that into a planetarium, into a information center for all of Fair Park, and for a maybe music and film festival. We have 17 screens in Fair Park.
So I'm hearing, I mean, it's gonna be a lot greener, it's gonna be, there's gonna be marketing as a, all of the features within
Right,
Fair Park are gonna be marketed together,
exactly.
and they're gonna get help.
Fair Park Fort.
And you mentioned, when you're talking about the money, you said priority 1, which was just the very basic, like safety,
Security.
ADA. And
ADA.
then you mentioned priority 2, but what was that?
Priority 2 is you spend it now, or you're going to spend a ton of money more later. If you don't put a new roof on your house,
That's priority 2?
that's priority 2.
Okay.
Then instead of you just replacing the roof in 10 years, you're going to have to replace the ceiling, your carpets, and your furniture because it's in.
So with the money that the city is talking about putting in, that money would really only sort of prevent
Cover 1 and 2, but not
prevent
totally.
safety, security, and further deterioration.
And some of the priority 2.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's another tranche
So
in
it's going to
5
be up
years.
to the money that you get from private entities to cover the
Yeah.
really the improvements.
Please don't hold me to this, but if we get some public money and refurbish some of these buildings, we really might get some other people to say, I want to adopt the Embarcadero building, Home Depot. And so this, the Home Depot uses that as a showcase, but at the end of the day, Embarcadero is improved. Now today, as I said during the presentation, it is totally naive to think that a tenant is going to come in there and spend $2 to $4 million or more to fix up a building so they can move in and rent it. It's just not going to happen. I mean, maybe we're talking to the Dallas Community College District or the old Women's Museum. Well, that requires $2 million in cash to fix it up so that someone could come in. And I'm hoping that we can find the $2 million, because that's a new force coming in with a lot of kids walking around the area, and then maybe they have lunch. So it's a synergistic type activity.
And for people in the area, you talked about sort of the site pollution in terms of the asphalt that they have to look at. I mean, I assume it'd have a big impact for
It would.
them. And the heat?
Yeah. Well, not only, it's got a number of ecological problems. One is the heat. It's about 10 degrees higher. Second thing is it doesn't absorb water. So in other words, you have an outfall of water on all that stuff that overwhelms sometimes our stormwater system. And that's part of the problem in Fair Park, what I discovered. And before the foundation came along, this was not on anyone's radar screen. We have electrical valves that can electrocute the people. They have to pump the water out that's draining into the electrical valves because of broken pipes. And the other thing is that the drainage system was built in 1936 to 1950. And they sized that with smaller diameter pipes. It was what they call to accommodate a 5-year flood event. Now we plan for 100-year flood events. So we've got to find a better way, and that's why I've asked for that $5 million from Public Works, not for Fair Park, but just get the water in Fair Park, out of Fair Park. And hopefully that will happen. Every one of the buildings that I visited with, they all have water intrusion problems, almost without exception. And I know it doesn't sound very stimulating to talk about fixing old buildings and pipes and drainage. And once again, as I said 3 times, I think today, we're not just about building old buildings, fixing up old buildings. And maybe the folks that are saying that will finally hush up.
I know there was some discussion about the length of the contracts.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm so delighted they shut that down.
Right.
That's 20 years instead of 10.
Does it take?
I'm sorry.
I mean, do you have? Is it hard to get someone to invest if you're not able to have?
Not only hard, maybe. Why should I spend $3 million fixing up my building? To amortize that cost, you're familiar with what I'm talking about. You have to be in and earn profits enough. And let's say if I have a 12 or 15-year payback, and I come into this building and you tell me you're not going to be around in 10 years, I think I'll go to someplace else like Frisco or Arlington where they're more accommodating.
This is William, hopefully your favorite videographer from Two Hats Publishing. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like it, please leave comments below, or like, follow, or subscribe to us and get notices of all our videos. We love it, even when you call.